This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. First up, Morgan Brown, President and CEO of Wave Imaging Technology, an impressive early-stage company in making seismic imaging more user-friendly. Next up, Carter Higley, a financial advisor with UBS's Private Wealth Management Group, offering his perspective on the re-industrialization of America, along with his forecast for the oil and gas business in Mexico. All that right after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. We have with us today Morgan Brown, President and CEO of Wave Imaging Technology. Morgan, great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
So tell us about the company.
We are a specialty seismic processing company. So seismic, if you want to drill a well, and nowadays it's expensive, so you want to know what's down there before you drill it.
Sure.
So literally, we basically, the seismic method, you've had sound sources and microphones on the surface of the earth. You send sound signals in, measure the echo signals. So we turn those echo signals into a three-dimensional picture of the earth.
And has technology really progressed in that area?
Oh, astoundingly. If you look 30, 40 years ago, computer power was at a premium. Nowadays, the computer power of my iPhone literally will match what was in a supercomputer of 1964, say. So it enables us to kind of, I'd say, theory and practice. A lot of tools that were algorithms in place 35, 40 years ago to do seismic imaging are just now becoming commonly applied in practice because of that computer power.
So how is your technology better than the competition?
For a 9-person company, I think we're the only player out there in the depth imaging niche that has all of our own technology. We've got 3 patents and millions of lines of code. Top-notch people developing the tools. We kind of, in the depth imaging world, we specialize in the onshore business. So we were one of the first companies to really take a technology that had been getting applied in the offshore, like in subsalt,
right,
and really take it onshore, where we thought it had enormous potential 5 years ago. And now you look what happened in the last 3 or 4 years in terms of unconventionals, a lot of activity out there. So we're kind of one of the leaders in that little niche.
Well, and is it the technology that makes your company unique?
Absolutely. We really have a couple key technologies in terms of estimating velocity. So when I explain what depth imaging is, I love to show this cartoon that shows it's an old BC cartoon. It shows 2 guys standing next to a water well, and one guy says, "Do you know how deep your well is?" He says, "No." He drops a rock in the well and says, "Your well is 16 seconds deep." Okay.
Right.
Well, you don't want to know how deep it is in time. You know how deep it is in depth. So to convert time into depth of an echo signal, you need to know what the velocity is. So our core technical innovation is the ability to estimate accurate velocity fields to convert time into depth and produce a real map in depth. That's what the drillers really want to see.
Well, and what does the customer see?
The customer, we don't shoot the seismic data.
Sure.
We got kind of a. It's funny when I get a insurance requirement from a big customer. They want $5 million in liability for this and that. Like, guys, we're just a bunch of nerds sitting in a computer lab. We've got a bunch of computers. That's true.
Right.
We crunch take the input data, crunch numbers with our supercomputer, and then output a digital image. So it's all kind of virtual, and literally we'll FTP it to the client in many cases.
And the look of it, is it three-dimensional? Is it a color graph?
Well, at a basic level, it's just ones and zeros in the computer, but the client will then load those ones and zeros into what's called a workstation to actually view it in 3 dimensions and actually look at the geology in 3 dimensions. Yes.
How did the company start?
We got our start about 5 years ago, and this is a really classic case of if you want something done right, do it yourself. Dr. Joe Higginbotham founder of the company. He was a career Texaco and Chevron researcher, and at Texaco and Chevron, he developed a software system called seismic, which Chevron released to him in '06 when he retired. So he went off to another seismic processing company where he and I met and tried to get this other company to adopt the technology of their own.
Right.
They didn't do it, so he went off and quit, started his own company, and before I knew it, the guy had 40 computers and a working system, so I went and joined him about 3 months later.
Fantastic. Tell us more about your background.
I'm the CEO of the company, but 5 years ago, I never would have thought I'd be here. I did a PhD in geophysics from Stanford, spent 5 years working in hardcore R&D, writing code, doing all that stuff. And I took a look at Joe after about 3 months. I said to myself, one of us has to go sell this stuff. I guess it's going to be me. So I was kind of the martyr to the business, you might say. And I carry a sort of deep understanding of the technology, but the ability to communicate it on different levels to different customers.
Well, and you're getting back to your Stanford roots, right? Yeah, I mean, that's an entrepreneurial school.
It sure is. It is. My advisor made a comment some years ago. He says, well, we've got lots of people doing this and that, but we don't have enough entrepreneurs. So I sort of took that to heart. Absolutely. It's a tough road, though.
But the company's growing. Are you out there hiring?
Absolutely. We've hired 3 people, which amounts to a 50% increase in headcount.
Congratulations.
For about the last, I think, 14 or 15 months. So I can't say we're hiring immediately, but we're sort of digesting some of our new hires.
Sure. Part of that continued growth.
Absolutely.
Well, as you look ahead to 2013, what are some of the challenges you're looking to solve? What are some of the opportunities you want to grasp?
Well, I should mention that I've signed a letter of intent with another company to sell our company.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been 5 years in coming, and I don't see it as it's really only the beginning. Really, this new company, which I won't name, of course, gives us access to big markets, big customers, and I think what technology has been proven on a small stage, we're going to put it on a big stage now and really go make some money, have some fun.
Well, we love seeing entrepreneurial success, and ultimate buyout by a strategic is certainly a sign of that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and visiting with us today.
Thank you, Paul.
And that wraps this episode of the Energy Makers Show. We'll be back with more right after this.
At BKD, we understand the constantly shifting nature of the energy industry. As a national CPA and advisory firm, we serve energy clients from the beginning to the end of the cycle. Our experienced energy advisors serve approximately 300 energy companies in exploration, midstream, downstream, oilfield services, and power production. Plus, we're the largest North American member of the Praxity Global Alliance, which means we can help you wherever you operate. Contact a BKD advisor or visit us online to learn more.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our guest now, Carter Higley, a financial advisor for UBS's Private Wealth Management Group. Carter, great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So tell us about UBS and your role within it.
UBS, largest private bank in the world.
Yep.
I work, as you said, in the private wealth space, which includes 16 professionals here in Houston, 4 teams, 100 teams around the country, located primarily in the large cities from coast to coast and in the Midwest. Each of us have what one would consider an advanced degree, and we focus on a select group of clients. Our team happens to focus primarily with those who are entrepreneurs, roll up their sleeves on a day-to-day basis, and because of being in Houston and in Texas, largely in the energy space.
Well, and from that vantage point, you see a lot of the trends, some that we've discussed before. I'd love it if you'd share your thoughts on, we continue to hear more about how the U.S. is finally becoming more independent from some of the OPEC and other sources of fuel. What are you seeing in that space?
Sure. Well, we benefit from seeing, from oil field service all the way to upstream.
Sure.
And so what we're finding is, whether it be the oil sands in Canada or the deep water in the Gulf of Mexico, many of our clients are benefiting from the resources that are available, and it's largely due to the technological advances, the new discoveries, whether it be shale and Eagle Ford, which we're very familiar with, or shale and Bakken. And then ultimately, the infrastructure that is being put in place, which again our clients are involved with, pipelines. And so we as a country, North America, and in North America, to define that, I include clearly Canada, the United States, Mexico, are what I would call in the middle of a re-industrialization.
Well, that must make it a pretty exciting time.
Paul, we're very enthusiastic about the future. I think that any time, and I'll start as the country, any time that you're creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, hundreds of billions of dollars of output, and having more export than you are import, which of course benefits the U.S. dollar, trade imbalances, you then get into discussions concerning, again, security and energy independence. It's an exciting time for us. It's an exciting time to be in my business. More and more entrepreneurs with the innovative minds that they have are finding ways to not only benefit themselves but also benefit our country. And as I think you might agree, we all are relying on innovative entrepreneurs to help drive us forward. So yes, this reindustrialization is terribly exciting.
Well, and let's talk about Mexico, because it is often overlooked, when you talk about the oil sands in Canada and what we're doing here in the U.S. What is happening south of the border?
Paul, as you might know, Mexico is a unique place to be for the United States because of particular constitutional constraints. We have a new president in Mexico, Nieto, and it is apparent that he is going to be more and more friendly with there being cross-border discussions and agreements. Mexico for so long has had nationalized production. Petróleos Mexicanos, as we call Pemex, has really had a handle on the production. We've got enormous resources in Mexico, largely deep water. What we collectively are constrained by is, will Mexico allow there to be capital pumped into their system so that we can improve the technological capabilities to get to the resources in deep water? And then finally, are we going to be able to allow independent oil companies to provide the intel and the human resources that are necessary to benefit a place like Mexico and the rest of North America like we have right here in the United States or even in Canada?
How will that play out?
Here's how I think it'll play out. I think that we're going to see Nieto and the Mexican government continue to work more and more with the United States and allow there to be independent oil companies and private capital and highly regarded infrastructure technology come into the country because here's why. Mexico needs to tap in to the abundance of resources for their population, for the overall good of their economy, and to not let that happen. I think Nieto and the rest of the legislature is going to find that to be ultimately a huge negative. And to get one thing, to get to this really deep, this is deep water stuff.
Right.
I mean, deeper than you and I will typically hear. And to get to that, we've got to have technology that we have here in the United States. And so I think that we'll find more and more dialogue and, in fact, more and more production from IOCs, independent oil companies in Mexico.
As you're helping energy companies and some of these entrepreneurs, many in the energy space have seen the ups and downs, right? They've seen suddenly a stop or a dip in oil prices, which causes problems in their business. How do you see that trend playing out in the U.S. right now?
I've heard recently an analogy to the number of innings in a baseball game. And many have asked, well, what inning are we in this energy boom?
Yeah.
And I would answer that question by saying I think we're in the third inning of a 9-inning stretch. And I think that while boom is often used, I see, as you put it, the trajectory continuing to be upward. I think from the enormous amount of resources, whether, again, it be the oil sands in Canada, whether it be shale and benefiting from oil and gas, whether it be biofuels even, or natural gas liquids. I think the enormous amount of resources that we're finding and that we're discovering that have been there, but because of technological advances, we will continue to see, or our clients will benefit from, an upward trajectory.
Well, I was excited for us to sit down also because, Congress has just, and the president have just worked through that fiscal cliff discussion, and we hear that there's more to be had. What's your take on where our nation will be financially as we then seek to solve some of these energy issues and opportunities?
I want to be careful there because so much is yet to be determined.
Sure.
This fiscal cliff continues to be delayed. We've gotten some answers. However, February and March will be two very interesting months, if not more dramatic than
Right.
than December was for us as a country. I will say that I think the February budget proposal will be very telling as it relates to oil and gas. I think we will see an unwinding of these tax benefits of the oil and gas companies. I think the write-offs for these oil and gas E&P companies are going to be taken away. I think we are far from there being some sort of comprehensive policy put out by Congress. So there is much needed leadership, continued leadership from Washington and from those that have an impact on Washington. And so as a public, as those who put our faith in our leaders, we really need folks in Washington to lean forward and work together and square things away so that we can move forward economically.
Well, Carter, you've always had an incredible vantage point on the market, and thank you for coming by today to share some of that with us.
Paul, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And that wraps this episode of the Energy Makers Show, heard on the radio nationwide and seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com. I'm Paul Dickerson, and I'll see you next week.